You know, submarines are the ultimate predators of the sea. They're silent hunters that can strike from completely unseen depths. But during the absolute chaos of World War II, some of these incredible machines just sailed off into the fog of war and never came back. This is the story of the forgotten subs that simply vanished.
It's a chilling question, isn't it? It just leaves this void, a mystery that can stretch on for decades, leaving families without any answers and historians with just tiny fragments of a story. For the crews on board, it's their final mission, one they never come home from, their fate sealed forever in the crushing dark. The sailors who served on these boats were part of what they called the silent service. I mean, their entire world was about stealth, constant danger, and absolute radio silence. But that very same silence that made them such deadly hunters, well, it also meant that when they got into trouble, they often disappeared without a single SOS. So today, we're diving into the stories of two of the most famous submarines to ever disappear. First, the American USS Wahoo, a celebrated undersea ace whose fate was a total puzzle for over 60 years. And then there's the French Surcouf, a one-of-a-kind underwater cruiser whose vanishing act is still one of the war's biggest maritime enigmas. All right, let's start with one of the most feared and successful submarines in the entire U.S. Navy, the USS Wahoo. This boat wasn't just a piece of military hardware, it was a legend in the making. So the Wahoo was a Gato-class sub, basically the workhorse of the American fleet out in the Pacific. Commissioned back in May 1942, its crew of 80 sailors quickly got this reputation for being incredibly aggressive, a personality that really came straight from the top. And the man behind that fearsome reputation was Lieutenant Commander Dudley "Mush" Morton. This guy was a true undersea ace. He completely transformed the boat, pioneering these super aggressive tactics that were pretty much unheard of at the time. He believed in taking the fight straight to the enemy, no matter what the risk was. And oh yeah, his tactics worked. In just 6 patrols, the Wahoo claimed to have sunk an incredible 27 enemy ships. This made the boat a symbol of American power in the Pacific, striking fear into Japanese shipping and choking off those vital supply lines. But for his 7th patrol in September of '43, Morton wanted an even bigger challenge. He volunteered for what was probably the most dangerous mission you could imagine, sneaking into the heavily guarded Sea of Japan, which was basically the Emperor's backyard. The Wahoo slipped through the Le Perouse Strait to start its hunt, and then just silence. The Wahoo never made its scheduled radio check-in. By November 1943, it was declared missing, presumed lost with all 80 hands. For more than 6 decades, the final resting place of this legendary submarine remained a complete and total mystery. Think about that for a second. 63 years. Just silence. Generations passed. The war ended. The entire world changed. But the Wahoo and its crew were still lost to the sea. And the question of what happened on that final day just echoed on, unanswered. So how was the mystery finally solved? Well, it wasn't by one country, but by this incredible international team. You had the Wahoo Project Group, led by Commander Morton's own grandnephew, working with a Russian dive team called Iskra, and, get this, using historical records provided by a retired Japanese vice admiral. Former enemies united by a mission to uncover a piece of history. And in July of 2006, they found it. There she was, lying upright on the seafloor at 213 feet. The wreck showed exactly what had happened, a huge, gaping hole right near the conning tower, which perfectly confirmed Japanese reports from October 11, 1943, that detailed a long air and sea attack on a sub trying to escape the strait. The mystery was solved. For the families of those 80 crewmen, this discovery brought a painful, 63-year-old chapter to a close. For them, it wasn't just about finding a wreck. It was about finally knowing where their loved one's final resting place was. But where the Wahoo's story found closure, our second submarine story remains this giant, haunting question mark. Let's now turn to the French Leviathan, the Surcouf. Okay, the Surcouf was like nothing else ever built. It was an absolute giant, designed not for stealth, torpedo attacks, but as an underwater cruiser. It had a massive twin 8-inch gun turret. We're talking guns the size you'd find on a heavy cruiser, plus a reconnaissance float plane in its own hangar, and a crew of 130. It was a crazy, ambitious, and totally unique ship. So after the fall of France, the Surcouf joined the Free French Naval Forces. In February of 42, it was ordered to leave Bermuda and head to the Pacific through the Panama Canal. It said sail and just disappeared. No radio message, no wreckage, no survivors. Just gone. So what happened to this monster of the deep? Without a wreck to actually examine, its fate has become one of World War II's most debated mysteries. And there are two main theories that compete to explain how 130 sailors were lost.
So you've got two plausible but really tragic scenarios. The official U.S. inquiry concluded that the Surcouf was probably rammed by accident in the middle of the night by an American freighter, the Thomson Likes, which reported hitting some large submerged object. But a French inquiry pointed to something else: friendly fire. They found records from an American bomber group that show they attacked and sank a very large submarine in that exact same area, thinking it was a German U-boat. And here's the kicker: no German U-boats were lost there on that date. It was almost certainly the Surcouf. So was it a tragic accident or a friendly fire? Without finding the wreck, we just don't know.
The stories of the Wahoo and the Surcouf, one found and one still lost, really bring us to the powerful legacy of all those who served in the silent service. These two stories really represent two very different kinds of endings. For the crew of the Wahoo, discovery brought closure, a known, final resting place. But for the Surcouf, the mystery just hangs there. Its fate is a ghost story, a haunting reminder that the sea doesn't always give up its secrets. And it's important to know, even when a wreck like the Wahoo is found, it's not salvaged. It is designated a war grave, which is a sacred naval tradition. The submarine itself becomes the final memorial for its crew, protected by law and honored by sailors everywhere.
This quote from Fleet Admiral Chester Nimitz, the commander of the U.S. Pacific Fleet, just perfectly captures the profound respect for these sailors. They held the line during the absolute darkest days of the war, and their sacrifice is a cornerstone of naval history. So in the end, whether their final location is known, like the Wahoos, or a mystery, like the Surcoufs, the legacy of their courage is exactly the same. They answered the call, and they embarked on a mission from which they never returned.
And so, in the silent depths of the world's oceans, they remain, forever on eternal patrol.